scenes like this, or any of these, and actually never understand or pick up on what's really going on. Look, there's two types of people. There's the ones who watch these films and enjoy this cinematic masterpiece, an iconic piece of entertainment. But there's a smaller group that likes to look deeper. They can see the similarities and lessons hidden within these films and look to extract all the gems hidden deep within. If you're watching this video and part of the culture mafia, chances are you know which group you fall into. There's a reason why so many successful leaders, entrepreneurs, and just high-level and intelligent people in general love the Godfather films. Its themes and the timeless tale of struggle for power and influence speak to something deeper than the standard crime drama. And who better to learn from than Michael Corleone himself? He's an incredibly flawed character, and yet those are the exact types of people we can learn the most from. And to be completely honest with you, some of these are quite dark. No one wants to talk about them, and those that use them do not want you to. It's the unfair edge reserved for the top echelons of the players in the game of power. It's what separates the 1% from the 99. In this guide, we'll give you the real, practical, no-nonsense lessons that you could immediately start using without breaking our code of honor. There are literally hundreds of lessons that we found, but today we'll break down the 10 most powerful, but more importantly, useful lessons from none other than Michael Corleone himself. All these lessons have been hand-picked, and like a carefully woven tapestry, all these lessons are connected. All are equally important, but are most effective when used together.
My father taught me many things.
Lesson 1. Plans will go wrong. Always be prepared. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu states, "Those who are victorious plan effectively and change decisively. They're like a giant river that maintains its course but adjusts its flow. They have form but are formless. They are skilled in both planning and adapting and need not fear the result of 1,000 battles, for they win in advance, defeating those that have already lost." You might have heard of the famous saying, "Plans are worthless, but planning is everything." The truth is that most people have never actually understood what it really means. Here's the misconception people have. They think that planning is just setting a series of specific, predetermined sets of actions to be done sometime in the near future. Effective planning and strategizing is giving yourself the ability to have the most maneuverability and flexibility to respond to different situations. Empowering yourself by going in with the right information and the readiness to respond to the challenge at hand. It's knowing your objective and being prepared for the right path to get there. Your goal is to position yourself in a way that you have more options than your enemy. But here's the thing, no matter how much due diligence, detailed planning, or time and effort you put in, the reality of the world is that everything changes constantly. And when it does, you need to be prepared. You can't let it throw you off. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. We'll come back to this, but let's look at a perfect example of Michael utilizing this principle. In The Godfather 2, after Michael manages to escape from Havana, he is then told the distressing news that Frankie Five Angels, who was supposed to be dead, had actually been picked up by the authorities and had made a deal in turn for testifying against him. As it turns out, this was all Roth's doing. He had pretty much checkmated Michael, putting him in an extremely tight position. You see, all this came out of nowhere as Michael had been fighting claims that he was running a criminal organization. Instead of pleading the fifth, he lied, as he thought they had no concrete proof of any of these allegations. But now they had Frankie in custody. Michael was about to lose everything. Even with all this pressure and almost everything going wrong, he manages to deal with the situation. The key for Michael was not the fact that he always had a clear vision for the future and his plans went perfectly. Rather, the fact that he always made moves that gave him options. No matter how or what his enemy did, Michael was in a position to respond effectively.
All he had to do was show his face.
It was between the brothers, Kay.
Lesson 2. Think on your feet. Planning will take you far, but in life you won't always be able to foresee everything, so we'll often be sucker punched by life, vis-a-vis the whole Frankie Pentangeli situation. And since that is an inevitability in life, solely relying on your plans to go perfectly is not a good idea. So you need to pair the skill of planning with something just as important. There is a German term that describes this beautifully. It's called, well, I don't even think I'll try to pronounce it, but feel free to give it a try.
Fingerspitzengefühl.
Anyway, it roughly translates to fingertip feel. It's sort of a sixth sense that separates professionals from the amateurs. It's that gut feeling, that intuition that lets you read people like an open book, anticipating their moves before they even know it themselves. It's the power to make decisions on the fly, with the weight of the world on your shoulders, and yet you know exactly what to do. In previous centuries, it was best exemplified by the generals and leaders on the battlefield who would need to take quick, decisive action at a moment's notice and hope they managed to make the right move. It is the key to survival, the secret weapon in the war of power and influence. Today, the perfect example of this are athletes that play at the highest level. You see how they develop an instinct, a unique ability to perform despite the fact that the weight of the world is on their shoulders? It's a blend of experience, smarts, and instincts that keeps you ahead of the game, always in control. If you want to be a top performer or just manage to compete, you really should start thinking about how to develop this. With that being said, understand that this isn't something you can develop overnight. A key in chess and strategy in general is positioning, placing yourself in a position where you can maneuver and have enough leverage to get back up and continue moving forward. All the work you put in beforehand will be the key to pull you out. Imagine if Michael didn't have the resources or wisdom to be able to handle such a catastrophe. He was caught off guard. It was the best checkmate a Corleone enemy had ever managed to pull. And yet, with the pressures he was under, he managed to act effectively, repelling this masterful move, which then ties in perfectly with Lesson 3. Lesson 3. Don't complain. Even with all that he had to deal with, the constant feeling of dread, the insurmountable pressure of taking over a crumbling empire and being expected to not only survive, but reclaim the family's honor, that looming dread of the inevitable war that was to come, all this unimaginable pressure, and he never complained. He never gave in to the lure of looking at himself as the victim. Although, as me and you know, he really was a victim of the crimes of others. Whether it was Vito or Sonny, Michael had to pay the price for what they did as well as his own crimes. But anyway, of course we don't agree or condone the life of crime Michael continued. I want you to focus on this mentality because it can be extrapolated into our own lives. This is a powerful mentality to have because when you refuse to see yourself as the victim and decide it's your responsibility to get yourself out of whatever difficult situation you're in, you are then in control and can actually start using all this energy to do something about it. People today want an easy out, and that's a very dangerous way to approach life. In the end, it doesn't matter what terrible situation you're put in. You simply can't control that. But what you can control is what you do about it. Successful people throughout history have taken it upon themselves to change their circumstances, and trust me, they had it a lot worse than us. Complaining and negative thinking will make you even more miserable and put you in a worse position than before. Become an effective problem solver, and your life will never be the same again. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. They're inevitable, as long as you learn from them and understand how to avoid them later on. If you do that, then the reality is you are the winner. Become stoic. Life will not always be easy, but you'll still have to push through anyway. That's the only way you get to the other side. Lesson 4. Take action. Move swift as the wind and closely formed as the wood. Attack like the fire and be still as the mountain. People are often stuck in the planning stage and spending their time dreaming of all the incredible things they will achieve without actually taking a step forward. Just sitting down and imagining how, one day we'll achieve it, or yeah, I would love to do that, but never actually doing anything about it. And to be fair, we've all been guilty of this. Michael was also in the same exact position. He had created a clear vision of what he wanted, but then understood that he didn't have the luxury of wasting time. Action was the only thing that could make his vision a reality. So remember, once you know exactly what you want, stop wasting time, get the ball rolling, break down what you need to do, and ruthlessly execute on it. If you don't have a goal, then there you go. That should become your number one priority. That's the first action you need to take, which leads us to Lesson 5. Lesson 5. Find your conquest. From the very beginning, Michael had one mission. Now, perhaps the way he went about it wasn't the best, making some catastrophic mistakes. Like we mentioned, Michael had a vision, a great purpose that he devoted his life to pursuing. And that's what you need. I mean, what better goal is there than saving your empire and continuing to build your legacy? But that might not be your goal, and that's perfectly fine. I can't stress how crucial this is. It becomes your map that guides your actions. The journey is going to be difficult, so you need a strong mission that inspires you to keep going. Find a goal, a mission that triggers something deep inside you. One that the mere thought of inspires and energizes you. You need to find a purpose, a mission to become obsessed about. That way, you can have a sense of direction and fulfillment. But how do you find it? And that is an important question. The truth is, I can't tell you what your goal should be. And really, nobody else can either. But here's what I know. It needs to meet these vital elements. There's one incredible book I found that actually helps you do just that. It's a rare book that genuinely gives you practical advice that's actually useful. You don't even need to read the whole thing. Just take what you need and get started. Keep in mind, your goals can change over time, and that's okay. As long as you're moving forward and clearly making progress, you shouldn't be too worried. The experience you gain will be very helpful later on. You never know when it will come in handy. Lesson 6. Be several moves ahead. Don't be imprisoned in the here and now. You need to take a step back and look at the larger picture. That way, you have a better view to make the best move. We all saw how Michael was always able to crush his opponents, and it wasn't because he had more manpower or was any smarter. It was the fact that he could look past the here and now and into the future. He would explore the possibilities each action could have and craft a solid strategy to get what he wanted. This wouldn't be possible if he was always reacting to things as they happened. We always tend to think about the here and now, and many of us rarely think about the future or are prepared for it. But how do you actually do it? It's easier said than done, so let's break it down. Firstly, you need to adopt a strategic mindset and develop the ability to think critically about the consequences of your actions. Here are some steps to help you embrace this approach. Learn from the past. Spend some time analyzing historical events or previous situations in the particular topic you want to be ahead in, so you can understand how decisions were made and how they led to specific outcomes. This will give you valuable insights into patterns and trends that can guide your future strategies. Anticipate potential outcomes. Start considering the different scenarios and the possible outcomes of your decisions. Evaluate the risks and benefits associated with each option and assess how they align with your long-term goals. Stay informed. Knowledge is power. Keep yourself well informed about the environment you operate in, whether it's your industry, market trends, or the people you interact with. Information empowers you to make better decisions, especially if you can verify it before your competitors. Understand motivations. Recognize the motivations and interests of others involved in a situation. This insight will enable you to predict their actions and responses, and like we mentioned, will help you plan accordingly, allowing you to be several moves ahead. Be flexible. While being several moves ahead involves planning, it's essential to remain adaptable. Circumstances may change, and you must be ready to adjust your strategy accordingly. All these aspects require you to sit down and think. It might not be instant, but when it's something very important to you, investing that time will reward you in the future. And as we mentioned in Lesson 2, the more you do it, the more intuitive it will become. Michael was truly a master at this. He's never looking at things from a short-term view. Michael is a keen observer, carefully assessing the personalities and intentions of those around him. He pays attention to even the smallest details, helping him form accurate judgments about people and situations, but also allowing him to prepare his next 5 moves. And when he doesn't, he will definitely feel the sting. This applies really well in business. All these successful people we see today all seized the opportunity years ago, looking far into the future and understanding the possibilities out there. That goes for investments. It's literally what some people build their entire career on. Even when looking at talent, those who can see the potential in people will know who to bet on in the long run. Now, this next lesson is where things get a little more nuanced. Lesson 7. Say less than necessary. I want you to listen closely, because this law is often misunderstood and ends up working against them. Here's how to look at it. The game of power is in many ways a game of appearances, so when you say less than necessary like a Don Vito or Michael, you inevitably appear more powerful than you are, which is one of the keys that established their aura of power. You need to realize the power your words have and understand that once they're out, you can't take them back since the damage is already done. Your words are extremely powerful. They could either be used for you or just as easily used against you, and it all depends on how you use them. When you reveal less than necessary, the silence and short answers puts them on the defensive. They'll try to fill in the gaps that you left with all sorts of comments that then reveals valuable information about them and their own weaknesses. After they leave the meeting with you, they will feel as though they have been robbed, now left to ponder your every word. And as the laws of power state, this extra attention to your every word will no doubt add to your power. A perfect example of this is Michael's meeting with Senator Geary, or even Vito's meeting with the commission. They both didn't do the majority of the talking, only making a few comments throughout, as well as vaguely responding to their demands, but never adding too much information that wasn't needed. On the other hand, you not only cultivate a powerful appearance by saying less, but you also don't run the risk of saying something that you might later regret. You won't believe how common this is, not just today, but throughout history. They claim the short-term satisfaction, but suffer in the long term, instead of just staying quiet and waiting for the right opportunity, therefore sacrificing the short-term satisfaction of responding for the sake of securing the long-term benefits. Have a look at what the 48 laws of power state. Your silence will make other people uncomfortable. Humans are machines of interpretation and explanation. They have to know what you're thinking. When you carefully control what you reveal, they cannot pierce your intentions or your meaning. Here is the core of this law, the most important thing I want you to take away from this law. Keep this in mind. Once the words are out, you cannot take them back, and this applies to life as a whole. The law warns to be especially careful with sarcasm, and add to that, you should be cautious of any comments that could hit an insecurity someone might have. The momentary satisfaction you'll gain will be outweighed by the price you will have to pay. Don't be one of those people who insult people casually and don't have a care in the world how others feel. Also, it doesn't necessarily even mean that you have to stay silent or act all mysterious. That's not exactly where people go wrong. It's just keeping in mind the power your words have and not get too carried away. Remember this, saying less than necessary is not just for kings and powerful people. Once you understand this, you might just save yourself from making a catastrophic mistake. Keep in mind, the law primarily applies in a competitive environment. Think negotiations, meetings, and so on, but you will see parallels in your personal life. We have a full video breaking down Law 4 and how to use it. We'll link it below so you can watch it after this one. But now is a very serious lesson I want you to take away. Many of you have been telling us your story of how this went completely wrong. Let's get into it. Lesson 8. Never outshine the master. This is probably one of the most useful and unfortunately going to be the most used lessons you will need to utilize in your own life. When dealing with people more powerful than you, they, to some extent, are going to have an ego. And that's normal. You need a healthy level of ego to get to the heights of success, but that's not who we're talking about. We're talking about those who derive their self-worth from being able to boss people around. They enjoy the feeling of keeping others below them and can't stand anyone who in any way could make them seem inferior. In the game of power, the master wants you to remain under them. They can't stand anyone surpassing them by the way of their own skills and abilities. If you start succeeding, they want to feel directly involved or the sole reason for your success, so that in a sense, you're always below them, making you feel like they did you a favor, not the fact that you worked hard. These types of people are everywhere and quite often very petty. It's a very delicate situation. The first key is to diagnose it correctly, as they're just competitive or egotistical in the worst possible way. Either way, you don't want to make them feel like you're in any way against them. But this doesn't mean to always suck up or become a yes man, but become conscious of when you're diminishing their presence. Once you realize you can't help but overtake the master, avoid them like the plague, end things amicably, and just move on. Because if you don't escape from under their thumb, well, unfortunately, you're in for a pretty grim reality. In the year 1500, Cesare Borgia laid siege on the city of Faenza. The city was ruled by the Prince Astorre Manfredi, who was only 18 at the time. He was adored by his subjects, known for his generosity and open spirit. When the city eventually surrendered, the citizens expected the worst, especially given Borgia's ruthless reputation. However, instead, he decided to spare the city and only occupied its fortress. Borgia also gave him and his court complete freedom. But a few weeks later, the prince was arrested and sent to a Roman prison on the orders of Borgia. A year later, the prince's body was found in the Tiber River with a stone tied to his neck. He was sent to sleep with the fishes. Cesare Borgia is perhaps best known for his ambitious and ruthless pursuit of power and his involvement in the political intrigues of Renaissance Italy. From the powerful house of Borgia, he continuously consolidated their influence in the region. Therefore, he sought to expand the territories under the control of his family. Cesare was known to be ruthless, showing little mercy on those under him. Borgia was also notoriously egotistical and insecure. Because of his natural talents and reputation, the mere presence of the young prince made Borgia insecure. It made him seem less generous and charismatic. Even with his act of mercy, it was overshadowed by the generous young prince, and this was not going to be something Borgia was going to tolerate. Cesare Borgia was often considered a cunning and unscrupulous figure, willing to use any means necessary to achieve his objectives. His tactics earned him a reputation as a skilled strategist, but also as a ruthless and cunning prince. Unfortunately, there are many Cesare Borgias out there. Of course, today the consequences may not be as lethal as in the past, but the principles are still exactly the same. So the lesson is, if you cannot help being charming and superior, you must learn to avoid such monsters of vanity. Either that, or find a way to mute your good qualities when in the company of a Cesare Borgia. Another vital rule to remember is that you should never imagine that because your master loves you, you can do anything you want. Entire books can be written about favorites that fell out of favor by taking their status for granted for daring to outshine, something that Fredo Corleone had to understand the hard way. Lesson 9. Master controlling your emotions. Become a stoic. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu states, "All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when we're able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far. When far, we must make him believe we are near." Now, this is one of the Corleone's most potent weapons. Michael mastered this from very early on. There are countless examples of Michael skillfully using this principle successfully. Now, once again, all these laws depend on the context and timing. They are very delicate, so proceed carefully. Most people are open books. They say what they feel, blurt out their opinions at every opportunity, and constantly reveal their plans and intentions. It's easy and natural to always want to talk about one's feelings and plans for the future, but it takes effort to control your tongue and monitor what you reveal. It's astounding how accurate this is in today's society. I'm certain you can think of at least 2 to 3 people who perfectly fit this description. Before diving into that further, let's take a step back and explore how those who wield power actually do this. First and foremost, it's crucial to comprehend why this phenomenon occurs. According to the laws of power, there's a natural inclination to express one's feelings and plans openly, but it takes a lot of effort to restrain yourself and carefully choose what you reveal. One reason for this is that many mistakenly believe that complete honesty and openness will win people over and demonstrate good intentions. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Honesty can be a double-edged sword, as it might offend others with the raw truth of your thoughts and emotions. Being excessively open makes you predictable and familiar, which undermines your ability to instill respect or fear in others. As the law states, power will not accrue to a person who cannot inspire such emotions. Also, when has continuously complaining and bluntly criticizing people ever led to anything positive? Therefore, the law suggests mastering the art of concealing one's intentions. The rationale is simple. In any competitive field, the more you reveal, the more power you give to your opponents. The danger lies in creating an imbalance, especially if you unwittingly strengthen your adversary. When your opponent knows more about your plans, they can predict your moves, find your weaknesses, and launch a full-fledged attack against you. But by keeping them in the dark about your true intentions, throwing them off the scent, and setting up deceptive desires, you prevent them from preparing an effective defense or exploiting your vulnerabilities. When executed skillfully, this strategy makes you unpredictable and catches your opponents off guard. But be cautious, the slightest hint of your true motives can lead to a disastrous backfire. In the world of Michael Corleone, being completely transparent about his thoughts would have resulted in the swift downfall of his entire empire. He understood the necessity of playing the game, considering the severe consequences at stake. This principle applies to all those involved in the game of power, whether they're coaches, athletes, CEOs, generals, presidents, or even kings. All of them adhere to a different set of rules. The grim reality is that all the top players in this game forsake complete honesty in some way to achieve their objectives. It may sound exceptionally evil and unethical, and to some extent it is, but that's precisely the point. We want you to understand how these individuals think so you can see through their tactics. Rest assured, we'll provide you with a more ethical version of this law for you to apply in your life, but it's crucial for you to grasp that concept first. Both Roth and Michael are perfect examples of utilizing this law. Like a skilled poker player, they reveal nothing. They maintain a bland exterior that then confuses and infuriates their opponents, not giving them any signs or clues as to what to expect. Remember, appearances can be misleading. Let's look at Hyman Roth, for example. In the beginning, he seems like an unassuming and kind old man. He acted as a mentor of sorts to Michael, an old friend of his father's whose only goal was to pass down his knowledge. You know, a kind old grandpa living in a humble home with his lovely wife. But as you know, later on we find out that Roth was in fact the head of the snake, the real puppet master who had been behind the attacks on Michael. From Fredo to the Rosato brothers, Hyman Roth was the one using them as pawns in his much larger scheme. When the time's right, be like Michael. Don't allow your opponents to know what you're planning. It's never a good idea to constantly blurt out your opinions or thoughts at every opportunity you have. Constantly revealing your plans, even in our somewhat ordinary lives, can come with some unintended consequences. But this doesn't mean you should go to the other extreme, where you completely close up. Rather, being more conscious of what you reveal, primarily in a competitive setting. You need a healthy dose of stoicism. It's all about understanding the situation and mastering the art of timing so that you can determine whether or not it's appropriate in that particular situation. Again, like most of these laws, they are seen as standard practice in competitive environments. The biggest examples of people breaking this law are people who spend countless hours on social media, blurting out opinions they barely understand or even know where they got them. Don't be too consumed in constantly seeking validation. Instead, enjoy and celebrate your victories. Just don't use them for validation. Once again, if it's something you really want, there's always a time and place for you to indulge that urge. Now, this final lesson is extremely powerful. It wouldn't be an exaggeration if I told you that this is the key that built empires and was the cause of the ruins of others. And if you're a history fan and actually studied the greats, I'm sure you're going to agree with this. This lesson will tie all the rest together. And if you've watched this far, it shows both of us quite a lot. These lessons are usually held back from you by people who don't want to see you succeed. It's reserved to the top echelons of players in the game of power. It's what separates the 1% from the 99. And since you made it this far, you're probably part of the culture mafia. Well, I feel it's our duty to ensure that you have access to all the key information to get you where you want. Lesson 10. Be formless. This is probably the most powerful lesson in the game of power. You see, in this ever-changing world, rigidity and predictability can be your undoing. To wield power with finesse, you must become like water, effortlessly adapting to any situation. Just like what the great Bruce Lee said.
Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash.
You have to start looking at life as a grand game of chess, and you must be prepared to shift your strategies, reinvent yourself, and be willing to adapt and change. Don't just follow the playbook that everyone else is doing. By being formless, you become elusive, untouchable, and impervious to the schemes of your enemies. When you embrace formlessness, you confound your rivals with your unpredictable nature. They will find it impossible to decipher your next move. Embrace flexibility, and you will dance circles around your adversaries. But be careful, for wielding this power demands subtlety and finesse. Don't be too erratic. Instead, blend consistency with adaptability, and you will become the architect of your own destiny. In this world of shifting alliances and treacherous plots, remember the wisdom of assuming formlessness. Embrace change, anticipate the tides, and let your rivals stumble in confusion as you remain one step ahead. Such is the way of the true power player. If Michael just followed all these old-timers, he would have suffered a similar fate. He didn't establish a very narrow-minded pattern that others can catch onto that easily. Michael became known as someone who not only broke the rules, but also buried them. Think about it. From his very first step into the criminal underworld, Michael completely flipped the script.
Then I'll kill them both.
Remember what their reaction was? I don't know, I think Sun Tzu would be proud. With all that being said, I do believe that you need to have a set of concrete principles that you never break. Some might disagree, but I feel strongly about this, so not negotiable. This is something Michael lost sight of, which in a way makes him not that much better than Fredo. And that's what we constantly preach in our Game of Power series and all our videos. All these laws should be used in specific circumstances and sparingly. This allows you to become even more unpredictable and agile like Don Michael Corleone, while not suffering like he did. We want you to take all the positive and powerful lessons from these people and discard the rest, becoming a net positive to society, helping yourself and those around you. So, be adaptable, be formless, but never break your code of honor.
Be water, my friend.